Hello everyone. Last week, Friday the 18th, was the 10th birthday of the Wii U. Now, I hadn't really planned on doing a video for the U because I don't really collect for it, so it wasn't on my video radar. But the occasion of the 10th birthday sort of got me reminiscing, and I saw a few videos out there celebrating the anniversary, showing the games, and I thought, gosh, there is an awful lot of Mario games out there. People have stacks of them for the Wii U. Now, I don't play Mario as a rule, as you probably know. It's just not my thing. That's all I can say. Mario's not my thing. So I don't buy the games, I don't play them. Now that leaves my Wii U library concentrating on quite different titles, mainly RPGs, but also general adventure games, that kind of thing. And I thought, well, it might be interesting to 3 or 4 people out there to see what I've got. Not a lot, my library is very small, but then the Wii U didn't have a lot of games. It was, of course, backward compatible. It still is backward compatible, so you can play your older Wii games on it. Now, just briefly about the hardware. I must have bought what was probably one of the very, very last boxed units of the smaller basic Wii U, which only had 8 gigabytes of storage RAM. I bought it not in 2012, which was the release date of the Wii U. I only started gaming, as you probably know, in early 2013, and in June or July I happened to be walking past one of our retail shops here for electronic goods, and there was a huge sign up, we're clearing out, clearance sale. I had sort of heard that retailers in New Zealand were one of the first to get rid of any stock of the Wii U because it was just bombing. It was completely underperforming, and they didn't want to sit on stock that wouldn't sell and future games wouldn't sell. They didn't want to bar off it, so they were getting rid of everything Wii U. And I sort of looked at the sign and thought, oh, I wonder. That's how things often start, isn't it? And I walked into the shop. The units were being sold at 1/3 of the original retail price. And I said, do you happen to have a unit left? He said, nope, all sold out. Oh, I said, shame, I should have, come down earlier. He said, wait just a moment. And he went into the back room and rummaged about, and he came back with this box, which looked a bit sort of like it had been opened before. And he said, I've still got this one left here. I don't know why. I suspect maybe a customer returned it. I don't know. And I said, okay, I'll take it. I wasn't concerned, in case there was something wrong with it, because we've got very good consumer laws here in New Zealand, so it would have been no problem at all to just take it back and say, not working, it's a refund. So I just grabbed it. At that price, you really can't go wrong. Looking through my accounts, going back to 2013, I can see that I started buying games, and in particular the older Wii games. So I clearly wanted an access route to older classic games that otherwise were not available. So the Wii U, it's a nice hefty piece of equipment. And the one thing I have always liked about it the disk drive. The disk drive, I always say, runs as smooth as butter. Compared with all the PlayStation consoles I've had, and I've now got quite a few, I can't hear this disk drive at all. The disk just slides in like on velvet and says, "Oh, nice," and starts playing it. And I don't hear any noise while it's playing either. Completely different to the PlayStation consoles, where I always hesitate when I feed a disc in. I can hear the sort of crackle crunch sound like somebody eating crackers or biscuits. Then you hear it starting up, whir, sometimes it goes plump, and all sorts of noises. And as you all know, some of the PS3s and 4s can heat up tremendously with certain demanding games. So I've never ever had an issue with the Wii U, and I've always loved playing discs on it. You are, of course, very restricted with the tiny storage space. That was an issue. It's got 2 USB ports on the front and 2 on the back. So what I did was I plugged in an external hard drive, and I did a lot of careful research, and Nintendo advised that it was safest to get a drive that had its own power supply. So not one of these now very common USB external drives, but one that plugged in separately into the power supply. I bought a really good one, wasn't cheap, and plugged it in thinking, woohoo, here I go. I can't remember, but it had quite a bit of storage. It was within the parameters of what they specified. And you know what happened? Within 48 hours, the Wii U had bricked that brand new external hard drive. Literally, it just went boom, it just bricked it. In an instant, it was dead as a doornail. Man, I was angry. That was not funny. Ever since then, I simply got one of these cheapish, not dead cheap, but not expensive little USB flash drives. I plug it in and I haven't had an issue. So thank you, Nintendo, but no, that information was not very helpful. Now, I needed some storage drive because some of the games I wanted were not easily available here in New Zealand to buy in disc format anymore. Obviously time had passed and stocks had gone, so I never, for instance, managed to get a copy of a wonderful RPG called Pandora's Tower. A really unusual game, and one I really like. It's at times a bit cumbersome. Yeah, it's one of those games that's really quite unusual, and it would be so lovely to see just a straightforward port of it. I'm not asking for much, you don't even have to do an awful lot to the graphics. Just give us a working port on the Switch, that would be awesome. So I only have that digitally. If you know the game, and if you have it, let me know. I'll just show you a little bit. I remembered I'd recorded a little bit some years ago, so here we go. So this is Pandora's Tower.
Is anything the matter? I'd heard about the powers of the Vestra, but it was still amazing to see them for myself. Oh, some dryad berries. I know a really good cake recipe that uses these berries. How does it taste? I'll see what I can do, Erin. I hope you like them.
There's some really nice voice acting there for Elena. Elena and Aaron are the 2 main characters whose relationship is crucial, absolutely crucial in this game. So Aaron needs to go to a tower. This is very early on in the game. For reasons I will not explain, so that you can go in fresh if you would like to try the game for yourself. Remember, not many months left until the Wii U and 3DS eShop close down forever. So I'm just exploring this tower a bit. This was recorded years and years ago. I'm not quite sure how well I knew at that stage how to play or what to do, but it will give you an impression for just someone stumbling into this weird old tower. Ooh, first enemies. Hack, slash. And in case you're wondering about that funny turquoise blue point in front of Aaron, I think that's the Wiimote. It's your sort of search and lock on pointer that helps you find your way through and determine where you can get to. It sounds a bit weird, I know, but I think Aaron needs to jump and even grapple across to certain parts. So here you can see me trying to figure out whether I can lock on anywhere, and I'm not finding any point, so back down we go. And we try the next room, and oh, there is a big one. So it's important that I do a bit of dodge rolling when I manage it. But yeah, I got him. And you need to bind enemies. There's a special procedure which will become clear if you play the game why you need to do that, because you need to take something home. In this case, he's got a beast fang. There's quite a bit of stuff to pick up in this game, which is nice. I like that. So some enemies do respawn, which is useful. So fairly loot-centric, the game, and that's important because all the stuff you will need. I think there is a crafting element in the game. So it's basically an action game with some RPG elements and other things like crafting, and also, importantly, relationship building. So you can see the fast travel works really well. It's easy enough with just having the tower and the observatory. And the loading times are exactly as shown. So you can see that I think they're not bad at all.
Welcome back, Aaron. I couldn't believe it when they said the war was over. It had been going on since before I was born. Here you are, Aaron. I made some cakes using the dryad berries you gave.
So once again, I try to give her a gift. And here's all the stuff I've accumulated so far. And I'm thinking, well, she might like some grains. And oh, terrible reaction. You will know why if you decide to play Pandora's Tower. So as you can see, I've got quite a few accessories lying around here, mainly controllers. This is really how I see Nintendo. There's always too many accessories for my liking. I prefer a simple and straightforward setup, but no. The Wii U itself, of course, comes with the gamepad, and everybody knows it's got a poor battery life. I basically play it just permanently plugged into the power supply. And while everybody comments how Fisher Price it is, and yes it is, I found it reasonable to play with. Yep, the controls are not too bad. The analog sticks are quite smooth. The screen is just a plastic screen and it's not terribly good. You know, we all know that if they can skimp on the screen, they will. But it was good enough for handheld use to go together with the game you were playing. I even played a few digital games, older games, just on this as if it was a handheld. I remember I played Golden Sun on this, would you believe it? Yep, it was fine. So I didn't have an awful lot of gripes about the gamepad, but I still at some point decided to get the Wii U separate controller, because that's the type of controller I'm most comfortable with, and I really prefer playing this to anything else. So I imagine I would have got it for more action-oriented games. But the problems arose when you were trying to play a Wii game. Now, backward compatibility is all very well, but if you like to go in for strange controller types, with motion controls and all that, it can prove awkward to then bring that to the next generation. So as you can see here, I've got the Wiimote. I have in other videos previously complained about this and how I really, really don't like playing with it. I know some people find it comfortable and are happy with it, but I've come across an awful lot of people here on my channel who say, yeah, not ideal. This really put me off playing quite a few games, I'd have to say. They're very unfortunate. And of course you got the nunchuck to go with it. I was overjoyed one day when I saw this box at my local game store. So this Monster Hunter Tri came with the classic controller Pro, and I thought, yippee, this will solve all my problems. I get a proper controller together with my first Monster Hunter game. But it didn't quite work out like that. This controller, it does work with the game Monster Hunter Tri, but I couldn't get it to work with any other Wii game. Now, my memory is a bit hazy on this, so I'm hoping you people with backward knowledge of Nintendo consoles and accessories can help me out here. I recall asking people, like at my local EB Games and maybe a friend, well, why can't I get this to work? And I was told that they had been cheeky and had made the controller compatible only with this game, Monster Hunter Tri. Presumably because otherwise people would have bought it in droves to have a really good extra controller. I don't know, because I remember the box wasn't that expensive. I'm puzzled. I even looked through I've still got the official paperwork, the manual and everything. I looked through the fine print. There is no mention of anything there. Please let me know, is that correct and I can only use it with this one game, or is there a way to use this controller with other Wii games? You can see from the connection it plugs into the Wiimote there at the bottom, and that's how you get it working. It's years since I did all this, so my memory is now a bit hazy, I'm afraid. By the way, talking about Monster Hunter Tri, which is here, I was just thinking about this game when I was playing the new Pokemon games, Scarlet and Violet, and you've all heard about the issues with poor graphics and performance, and there's a lot of problems with textures and clipping and popping and all that. I remember, because this was my first exposure to that problem, when I started playing this game, you could literally, your character could almost walk through any texture, any monster. You'd just walk straight through, you'd disappear through the textures and then come out the other side. I thought this was really weird. I had no idea whether this was normal or not. It's clearly an ongoing issue with many games. But with older games, I think we tolerated more, because back in those days, working in 3D and with all these textures, obviously, it was challenging. But you'd think nowadays they might have got a handle on it. So that's the hardware side of things. Let's now have a look at the games I have. It won't take too long, there's not too many. Now, the interesting thing is that my stack of Wii U games is smaller than my stack of Wii games. So I guess you can see from that my interest in the older games was quite strong. In fact, I had quite a few more Wii games than this, but as I worked my way through them, I got rid of quite a lot. Unfortunately, I have to say now, because back then I didn't realise. I thought they had no particular value, older games. Once you'd played them, why not trade them in? That's what they always told me at EB Games. I've changed my ideas on that. I used to have a game physically called Fragile Dreams. And I know that a lot of people think quite highly of it, so it's nowadays reasonably rare and getting quite expensive. But I just traded in my copy for a few dollars. I had no idea back then. That was one of the games where I found the controls really, really awkward, especially for a beginner and working with the Wiimote, and it just drove me round the bend, honestly. So I had no compunction about trading it in. So let's quickly go through some of the older Wii games. Someone told me back then, please remember I was a complete novice, and whatever a game I told me I thought must be really great advice. It said, you must have a Sonic game. Now that's probably, generally speaking, not bad advice. The problem is that, just like with Mario, I'm just not a blue hedgehog person. And the games really don't suit me because of my hand problems, and Sonic ain't my thing, is all I can say. I gave it a go, and for some reason I hung on to this copy. I don't know why, but I still have it. Similar with Metroid, I've never really played it much. Any Metroid game, I don't know much about the franchise, and copies of this game, you'll probably recognise it, right? Other M, were just everywhere. You went into any electronics store, and in those days, especially you Kiwis among you will probably remember, they used to have these wire mesh or plastic bins, like big bins in stores where the reject stuff or the clearance stuff would go in there, and they'd just throw the games and their cases in there, higgledy-piggledy, and there must have been hundreds of this game everywhere, and they just couldn't clear them. So I just felt sorry for them, so I picked one up for a few dollars. I must have played it a bit. I have very little memory of it, I'm afraid. So please tell me if you think this is a game actually worth spending a bit of time with. Now here's the original Xenoblade Chronicles I don't have to talk much about that at all because I've done a separate video on Xenoblade Chronicles. So we've now got the definitive edition on the Switch, and this is my precious copy. Monster Hunter Tri, I've already talked about. Now here's an interesting game, a Dragon Quest game, which I actually haven't played yet. I only bought it a few years ago and I just never got around to it. I believe it's considered more of a minor entry in the Dragon Quest series, but if you have any experience with the game, please let me know, I'll be interested. Little King's Story. Now this is a lovely game. I'm sure many of you will remember it. I actually played it more on the Vita when the new Little King's Story came out. I played that, but it is actually quite a bit different. Although the basic gameplay idea and mechanic are the same or very similar, there are quite a lot of differences. So this one, the original one, has a lot of charm, and I'm really happy to have it. Overlord, Dark Legend. It looked like a really zany, funny kind of game, and I think it is the Overlord series, but I can't say I've played it a lot, so a bit of a blast from the past. I think the franchise is still going, is that right? Now don't laugh, please. But Prince of Persia, Forgotten Sands, a big favourite of mine. Well, I like practically all the Prince of Persia games. Someone told me back then that this Wii version was the very best version of Forgotten Sands, and that I must get it. So I dutifully did. And it's of course a wonderful game, but I can't see any great difference to the other versions on the other platforms. I just see it says on the cover it includes the original 1992 game Prince of Persia. Of course, all these old Wii games came with manuals still, and some of the manuals are really nice. Like the Overlord game has a really nice manual. Some of them are still in full colour. The Dragon Quest game, as you would expect, has a great manual. The original Pikmin game. And I'll tell you in a moment why I got that. New play control, because of course it was a GameCube game, and a really lovely manual. I got the original Pikmin game because of Pikmin 3 on the Wii U, which was the game that first got Poodlepaw into gaming. I tried so many games with him, and one day I was just sitting there tooling around in Pikmin 3, and he just walked up, looked at it, grabbed the controller, and started herding the little Pikmin about. It was a natural fit from the word go. So ever since then, Pikmin rule. Here is the opening sequence to Pikmin 3.
Their only hope is to find another planet with edible matter. Accordingly, they send unmanned scout vessels called Sparrows out into space. Last hope rests on 3 intrepid explorers. Something goes horribly wrong.
Waking up on a strange planet That's how I feel every morning, Charlie.
Super. When? When now? Sofa. Karupupe. What?
And here they are, our first encounter with the utterly adorable Pikmin. The controls I felt were better on the Wii U's gamepad than on the first game on the Wii. So definite improvement, but still a few niggly issues, which I think have been further ironed out in the new Switch version. And it's also really nice always to see where a game franchise started, the very beginning, and you know, what it was like back then and how they evolved it over time. Zelda, Skyward Sword. That's where it started. And now we have it on the Switch with the lovely amiibo. The game comes with some specials. You can see there a special music disc, Zelda 25th Anniversary Symphony. Now here's Rune Factory Frontier, and I have already talked about this in my Rune Factory video, so I won't go into it much, except to say that it's a lovely game. And honestly, the graphics still hold up. They still look lovely to this day, I think. It's one of those games where I put up with the Wiimote just so I can play it. It comes with a fantastic manual. I'm just wondering whether this might be a candidate for another remaster and port to the Switch. It could work really well. Now here's an interesting game, the Korrigan. I bet quite a few of you know that and have played it. It is a platformer, a 3D platformer, and I have to say I had problems with the camera. You know how the early 3D platformers, often it was difficult judging the direction you were jumping in, and often you would plummet to your depths. It comes with a fantastic manual. In fact, the amount of work that went into this game is quite extraordinary. It's a bit of a story in itself. So I decided to look it up. You know how I like my history. The game, the full title is the Korrigan Outvasion from Inner Earth, is an action-adventure game. The game is notable for its very prolonged development cycle over the course of 10 years, during which many different companies became involved, and the game moved from being designed for the Xbox to the Wii. After being released in August 2010 in Germany through a now defunct publisher, general international releases followed. Critics praised the madcap sense of humour and colourful graphics. Yes, I agree. But they criticised the clumsy camera control. Yes, I also agree. The game has a score of 70% on Metacritic. It's that madcap sense of humour and the characters and the whole world is just wonderful. It's got that spark of creativity and real invention about it, you know. The game was originally conceived by designer Klaus Lingeled. He quit his job to found his own company, Zoink, in 2001 in order to be able to work full-time on this project. And the moment I saw the name Zoink, I thought, oh yeah, of course, it all makes sense now. The madcap humour, yes. The first game I played that was a Zoink game was called Stick It to the Man. I played it on the PS3, I think, and I loved that game. I just played it straight through. It was awesome. So original. They also made Zombie Vikings. I also have that on the PS4 as well as Flipping Death. And they made a beautiful platformer, but it's all about animals and other creatures, called Fee. And I love that game. And also Lost in Random, which I do have but haven't played yet. So isn't it interesting just looking at an old Wii game and thinking, oh, I wonder where that came from, and then you sort of track the history and the connections through the years, and you think, oh yeah, I know who made that, I've played their other games. So the Corrigan, if you can cope with awkward camera controls and 3D platformers, I think you might actually have a blast with this one. You certainly might want to pick it up if it's not too expensive. The Last Airbender, of course I had to get it. I mean, I've also got the games on the DS games on the 3DS. Loved the anime, so this is just a no-brainer for me. So, yep, a licensed game. I don't even remember whether it's particularly bad. I don't think so. Please jog my memory. And the last one is a bit of a treasure. The Last Story. A huge RPG. I think Nintendo was attempting to have a sort of Final Fantasy on a Nintendo console, I think. It isn't quite, no, it isn't, but it deserves a place on your shelf if you have still a Wii or Wii U and like to play RPGs. It is from that period that I call the brownish-greyish period, where especially in RPGs, all the backgrounds, almost everything was just a sort of shades and variations of brown and ochre and grey. Yeah, nowadays I don't think we find it quite so appealing anymore. I never made it through the game because obviously in the early stages of my gaming career that was one citadel too far, because it can get pretty brutal, especially some of those bosses. Now that's a game I would have another go at if I had a proper controller that worked with it. A proper Wii controller. But I struggled with the Wiimote and the often pretty difficult combat situations and the plethora of combos you had to remember. But yeah, they put a lot of work into that, and while it doesn't have quite the pizzazz and that special ambience of Final Fantasy game, they had a pretty good crack at it. I remember it as being just a bit slow moving, the story as well, and a bit on the pedestrian side. Yeah, the characters didn't quite grab me either, the way that Final Fantasy characters would. But it's a game that I feel should really not be forgotten. So that was my stack of Wii games. So the Wii U is smaller, so we should get through that more quickly. So I've already talked about Pikmin, that's Pikmin 3. Zelda, Twilight Princess. Now this is the HD version, which came out for the Wii U, and they brought it out boxed with a special amiibo. and that's the wolf amiibo. I'm sure many of you will know it or have it. Will this ever be ported to the Switch or even a future Nintendo console? Nobody knows. I haven't heard anything. I don't think there are any plans. I know a lot of people feel divided about it and like it's not one of the best Zelda games, but I quite enjoy it. Yeah, let's just have a quick look at a clip, shall we? You remember this opening title sequence, don't you? It's the first thing that springs to mind when I think of Twilight Princess. And we start a new quest. These were simpler times. Look at the backgrounds. Tell me, do you ever feel a strange sadness as dusk falls? The hour of twilight, pervaded by loneliness. There are few games I can think of that have such a melancholy yet also beautiful opening. The characters look old-fashioned, but I don't mind at all. It doesn't have to be realistic to be a memorable game. I think they did a fantastic job with the tools they had available at the time to produce a game this beautiful, this striking. I have no problems immersing myself in this world. And from such simple beginnings, the story starts.
Hey!
All I want to do right now when I see this is go back and play the game all over again. So yeah, I'd really be interested to hear your thoughts. I'm glad I've got a proper Wii U controller to play it with. This is one of my favourite games on the Wii U. I played the heck out of this game. Tokyo Mirage Sessions. Absolutely adored it. The moment I popped the disc in, it just ran beautifully and it looks gorgeous, and I just found the combat really addictive, yeah. So it was simply no question for me that I had to get the Switch version as well, which one fine day, when I've got some spare time, I shall want to play it again, relive the experience. They call it Encore, so I think they've added in a few extra things. I got the limited edition of Tokyo Mirage Sessions at the time, and while it's not a big one, it comes with a very nice art book. You know me and art books, an absolute must. Hee-haw mart. Yes, the most unlikely hybrid combination you could think of. Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei. But somehow, weirdly, they made it work. And we go straight into combat here. If you are at all familiar with Shin Megami Tensei and or Persona, you will recognise the names of these skills. You'll be right at home. You notice how incredibly colourful and vibrant it is. The music is great. I just got really quite addicted to the combat system. And you can trigger extra bonus attacks. And there's a new skill flashing, you see. Our main characters are performers. That's their public day job. At night they hunt monsters, of course. And here's the new skill. And I love the menu system, and it makes it so easy. You see, there was one slot left where the skill could go. After that, you have to make choices. So here we are in the dungeon, an early dungeon, and you can see there's a gimmick here to traverse the floors. You need to go through this sort of puppet mechanism, and there's a little booth where you can adjust the arms going up or down or staying on the same level. It's a bit of a puzzle, you could say. There's a few tricky bits to it. And here you can see he's being transferred up to the next level up. And here's a random encounter. You can access the menu anytime. It's useful before a battle if you just want to adjust something. And here we go, once again. The skills, I have a quick look and I decide just to use a standard attack, which this particular enemy is weak to. Going for weaknesses, as always in this type of SMT-derived game, hugely important. I think it's very straightforward combat, but very satisfying. There's a selection of music tracks available with the limited edition, and some little art cards. Black Rain, Dreamcatcher, Beastie Game, Zelda The Windwaker. Now, I'm not huge on Zelda games normally. I do like them. I just don't seem to play them an awful lot. We'll talk about that a bit more in a moment. But The Wind Waker, oh boy, what a game. This is so beautiful and lovely. I just couldn't get enough of it. This is one of the top games in the Wii U library, in my opinion. They did a really nice HD remaster. It's just gorgeous. We start out in the idyllic village. I had so much fun just running around, exploring, doing silly stuff. A gorgeous place. Just look at it. It's so vibrant. The colours. The cell shading magic still works to this day. And here I visit Beedle's shop. He's such a funny shopkeeper. And we have the pear, which controls seagulls. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you!
Always check your mail. You never know. I love these mailboxes. And let's run off and just mow down some greenery, because that's what we do in Zelda games. Oh look, I'm sidetracked by a little piglet pen.
Yep.
And finding the little piggies from memory and capturing them was a bit of a job. And you can do so much in this game. You know, you just have to try it, and you can jump on roofs and climb about. And now we are in Link's room, and you remember that secret little cubby hole there? Oh no, he's got a horrible huge goober. Oh no, quick, let's get away from him. Oh no, he's following us. Oh, run quick, away from him. So finally we go to the dojo. Yes, I do need to practice my skills with a sword, because I know what's coming and I will jolly well need them. And there are an awful lot of moves to practice. Here's the parry attack. Now, this is a tricky one, but once you nail it, it is such a cool move. And we are ready for the big adventure. Absolute must-have, in my opinion. Why this game is not available on a modern console is completely beyond me. But hey, what do I know about business and games? So here's Scribblenauts Unlimited. I honestly don't know why I kept it because I didn't play it a lot, and I certainly haven't rushed back to it. I'm not saying it's a bad game, not at all. I think it's a fantastic idea and a nice game. It just didn't hit the right notes for me, that's all. Now this is Finding Teddy. Yes, it was published physically for the Wii U. Yes, this is a real copy, published by a very small French publishing outfit called Pixel Heart. Why did I go to the trouble of importing the game? Because I've got it digitally on the PlayStation and I really like the game. That's all I can say. It's a platformer with puzzles and Metroidvania elements as well. It's absolutely charming. I really like it. It's called something different on the PlayStation, so that's confusing. Now it's called Finding Teddy 2. I think there was an original Finding Teddy, but they did a lot of work on it and brought out a second version. But the PlayStation version, the digital one that I played, is called Chronicles of Teddy, Harmony of Exodus. So that's how you should be able to find it if you're interested. I do recommend it, yes, if you're into platformers with puzzles and just that sort of adventure feel, and it's got its very own vibe. That's the only way I can describe it. And that's what always makes a game special to me, if it's got that personality, it's not generic. And here we are starting up Chronicles of Teddy, also called Finding Teddy 2, certainly on the Wii U eShop. I skipped over the long background story at the beginning, so we're straight into the little girl's bedroom. There's a sort of portal from her bedroom to another world. Yes, and no fuss, we get our first sword and shield. And obviously off we go. Now, the game has been compared a lot, and quite rightly, to the older classic Nintendo games, particularly to Zelda games. And one game specifically, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, is cited a lot. So there are lots of nods there to those older games, also a bit to Super Mario games, I believe, but I can't comment on that since I don't play Mario. So we're now in Exodus, and we need to hurry to the library. And straight away our first enemy, one of these dark-robed figures. And instead of going to the library, I figured this out. You can go through this wall. You see that little arrow there on it? There is a hint there, but you really have to look closely in this game. It doesn't hold your hand at all. It gives you very little information. Sometimes frustratingly little, I'd have to say. It's by no means a perfect game at all. But just look at this guy. The game has an enchanting atmosphere, I find. It's obviously been made with a lot of love. And here we are in the library. So you can tell I've played this opening quite a lot because I know where to go to find the all-important things. In this case, the book. So this gives us access from the library into the world itself. And this is the map, would you believe it? I'm going to grizzle about that map later on a bit more. So in the main library room, the book goes up there. And guess what you have to do to access it? Yes! Climb up all the way. I have to say that the platforming is not the most precise, and that's not just my lack of skills with platforming. No, it really is. It's okay for someone like me. It's not really a big problem. And this is the shop. Once again, no written information or anything. You have to work everything out in this game from symbols and icons. So I've got some, I assume it's a passive skill. It's had an RIP on it, so I assume it means if I die, there's maybe I'm revived. Dying and coming back is not a big problem in this game, but what I hadn't realised is that you lose an awful lot of the gems you collect when you die. So you really don't want to die a lot. So let's try and access the book. Yes, hold up, and I had to hold. You have to press and hold, and then click OK, and then click OK again. And there we are. The book opens up, and we are transported to Ufara Forest. And this is a bit like a waypoint, I suppose. It's the point you need to come back to if you want to go back to the library. Straight away, our first slime enemies. It's wallop time, as I always say. And you obviously want the fruit. Now you have to fight your way through quite a few of these short enemy levels. This one is a nasty one. He killed me off a couple of times before I got past him. Before we go through the door, we want to see what's in that chest. Yes, our first rune. Now, runes are all important in this game. You need to find them. And I'll explain that a bit more in a moment. The game is very forgiving with replenishing your HP. As you see, usually smashing those little vases or blocks will give you quite a lot of HP back. This was a really awkward one to try and get to and smash the blocks. You have to, in fact, use the dash command together with the stick or going forward almost all the time to achieve things. And another rune. Look in every nook and cranny, it really is important. And here we have reached the village. Now you can see the inhabitants here. They have a sort of sing-song language with runes, yes. So you see the importance now. To be able to communicate and achieve things, you need to be able to put words together, and you need the runes for that. So let's have a bit more of a look around. There are lots and lots of doors leading to all sorts of goodies. Sometimes runes, sometimes treasure chests, sometimes more information. Here village Nutai, he says. And this is a very important guy. He says, you find jewel. And that tells us quite clearly what he needs. Once again, the map I don't find terribly helpful. And here we get the Musicom. I'm always tempted to call it the Famicom for some reason. So this is our lexicon, so to speak, for this Rune song language. And we need to fill it up, so we need all the runes. You like me hat? And all the words get added to the lexicon. So you need to stop and talk, or rather listen to, all the inhabitants and other creatures at times. And you see there are 5 pages, and we've got a smattering of words and phrases. Me name Ikaika. You find again berry. And we're back to exploring, finding our way across levels, dangerous levels sometimes. And here's a beautiful area. Look at that, with a sort of rose garden. Yes, another rune. No, not a rune. This is the jewel I think the guy was talking about that he wanted. Okay, back. This is the thing, you have to backtrack in this game. I haven't found any sort of fast travel device yet, so you're back and forth an awful lot. And here's the guy. Find jewel. Yes, we have found jewel. Tell open to door. So we can now use a command to open the door. You see it at the bottom right there. It's 2 brown runes and then the orange one, but we haven't got the brown ones yet. So I needed to go off and find that in order to be able to unlock the door, which I did do, but I can't show you that, as unfortunately the recording stopped. You can see here with the platforming how you can overhang sort of cubes quite easily. So I'm now trying to find my way back to the library. Look at that, I just had a go, and I tried 3 times, but finally, using the dash button as well, so you get a bit more force behind your sword, I managed to get through into that chest. And here I am back at the waypoint, and I can go back to the library. I hope you enjoyed this little excursion into Chronicles of Teddy. More Zelda goodness! Hyrule Warriors. Yes. And isn't that thoughtful? It looks like you can play it not only with the gamepad, but also with the Wiimote and nunchuck. Yippee! Some people like playing with that combination, so okay, you're very lucky, but I just can't. I thought this is a really nice and enjoyable game. I only have a problem with all Warriors games, wherever they are, with that convoluted map, and I always crawl up to the TV and think, where am I going? By the time I've actually found it, all sorts of stuff has happened, and yeah. But I thought this was well executed and a really neat game. Hyrule Warriors came out in September 2014, and it became one of the best-selling games on the Wii U. It was of course developed by Omega Force and Team Ninja. The game is a collaboration between publishers Koei Tecmo and Nintendo. So they mixed the characters and settings from The Legend of Zelda with the gameplay of the highly popular Dynasty Warriors series. Here you see the map, a typical Warrior-style map, and I've always had problems with it I simply get lost and I find it very difficult to consult it during gameplay. Due to the success of the game, it was also ported to the 3DS as an updated port called Hyrule Warriors Legends. A second port, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, came out for the Nintendo Switch in 2018. Finally, a sort of sequel, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, came out exclusively for the Nintendo Switch not so long ago. I have played some Warriors games, at least a little bit, so I'm familiar with them, and I usually find the combat in them pretty straightforward to learn and execute, and I enjoy the Musou gameplay style. I have to say that I find the combat in Hyrule Warriors possibly a bit more complex. There are a lot of combat moves to learn and to get familiar with. I would say it's a very personal thing. I just have never become as comfortable with it as I did with the original Warriors games. But there's no doubting the success and the popularity of this particular crossover. And I know more games have been brought out in this vein on the Switch as well, but I never pursued it any further. Bayonetta! Bayonetta! You either love her or you don't. But I love Bayonetta. She's absolutely awesome. And when she swirls that black hair about, her voluptuous form, you can't beat that. The witch is back, it says on the back. It was after I got this game and played it that I then went back and actually got the original Bayonetta game, which actually not so long ago had a bit of a remaster, and they sold it in a dual pack with another game, Vanquish. But yeah, Bayonetta 2, awesome game. If you like the type of story and humour they have in the Bayonetta game, the characters and, all the carry-on, then it's an easy like, I think. But not everybody will take to this particular style and humour. I don't need to go into Xenoblade Chronicles X because I've covered it in my Xenoblade video. You know my feelings about Xenoblade. I've shown the limited edition there in that video. And my very last Wii U game is a really, really special one. It's a game that is also available on the Switch. In fact, it was a launch game on the Switch. But it is originally, and when development started, it was a Wii U game. Yes, of course, Breath of the Wild. I got it at the time thinking that I would play it a bit, and then when I got a Switch, I would of course get the Switch version. Well, it took me quite a while to get a Switch, about 2.5 years after the Switch launched. And you know what? To this date, I haven't bought a copy of Breath of the Wild for the Switch. I can't really explain it. Probably because I know it's a big game and I already don't have enough time for all the other games I have. But also because I always think, well, I've got the Wii U copy, I can always play it there, although it would, of course, be a sight more convenient and probably also a bit nicer playing it on the Switch. But honestly, no, don't even think about it. Please do not say a bad word about the Wii U version of this game. No, it's not bad. It's the same game. It's Breath of the Wild. The graphics look fine. The game plays okay. I haven't had any problems. There's nothing wrong with it. Perfectly playable, looks nice. I bet it looks even nicer on the Switch. And of course you can play it handheld. No doubt one day I will get around to buying a copy. So that's my very small Wii U library. Small but much treasured. I would not dream of parting from it. And of course, my selection of Wii games, which I also treasure. That's it for today. My take on the Wii U. I know it was one of the poorest selling consoles in history, but those of us who have it are glad that we do, and keep it wrapped up and stored away, and occasionally pull it out, plug it in, and pop in our favourite game, whatever it may be. Let me know which Wii U or Wii game you go back to and just feel like you need to play it again. You don't want to stop playing it. I know which one it is for me. I think I'd have to say Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U. Yeah. But the other ones I showed you, there's some real crackers in there too. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much for watching. As always, please keep well. I'm Food for Dogs. Bye-bye.